This is Times Radio Breakfast.
9:51 Times Radio Breakfast. The latest figures from the Office of National Statistics show UK's population is projected to increase by almost 5 million over the next decade, from an estimated 67.6 million to 72.5. It says a driver of this growth is migration. With natural change, the difference between births and deaths projected to be around zero. Projections also highlight an ageing population, with the number of people aged over 85 projected to nearly double to 3.3 million by 2047. Let's speak to Melinda Mills, Director of the Leverhulme Centre for Demographic Science at Oxford. Melinda, good morning to you.
Good morning.
So are we to say that if there was to be no migration, no net migration, the UK population would effectively be flat?
Yes, that's true, actually. So it's interesting. So as you just said, so there's zero natural growth. So they're projected to have 6.8 million births and 6.8 million deaths. So that's zero. So what the projections came out today, they did three different things. So they projected, they were assuming higher long-term international migration. So they had initially assumed in their last projections around 200,000 per year. And remember that we had 750,000 due to multiple reasons, related to humanitarian crisis, Hong Kong, lots of different reasons. So that's one thing they adjusted. So now they're adjusting it to 340,000 per year, which is more realistic. The second thing they did is they assumed lower fertility. So remember, just a few months ago, we heard that the UK had the lowest fertility levels at 1.44, the total fertility rate since the 1930s. So they've now adjusted it to assume lower fertility. And the other thing is they are seeing that people are living longer and longer. So they've adjusted it to also account for the fact that, we'll have higher life expectancy. So you're right. So the main reason that we're expected to grow, or the UK is expected to grow, is due to these higher adjustments of international migration.
And there'll be some people who listen to, we just need fewer people because we have a country there's housing pressure, there's economic pressure. We need to have fewer people. But I suppose the problem with that theory is if you have fewer people, but they're all getting older and the greater percentage of people are older, then you have a less productive society. So it's just simply saying fewer people doesn't necessarily make economic sense.
Yeah, that's correct. So there's some countries that are actually in quite a bit of a panic at the moment because they have low migration, aging populations. In some, about 25% of the population will be over the age of 65. So their countries are starting to shrink. So why would you need some migration? Well, if we look at the statistics from 2022, for example, in the UK, about 35% were coming here for work. So they were engaging, a lot of them were recruits to the NHS and the social care sector. So, as soon as that starts to stop, then the healthcare system, runs into problems. And, you raised another good point about, we call it as demographers, the dependency ratio. So you have to have a certain amount of population that's working in order to feed into the pension systems. Now we know with the triple lock and the increase in sort of the state pensions, for 2023, it's expected to cost about 110 billion. Now imagine we have this increased life expectancy, we have lower fertility, we have fewer people in the labor market working. So we need people working in the labor market. So, there's a few options. You have to change the pensions, or you have to increase the time that you stay into work. There was one estimation that the UK would have to increase its pension age by 71 by 2050 to count for this. Or other ones have said we've had to triple our productivity. So something's got to break.
Which is not going to happen, I think, and no one would believe that with any degree. And in a funny way, it makes the case for some people who otherwise are maybe anti-mass immigration. It certainly makes the case for having more young people who work brought into the country. If we can't produce those ourselves, we have to import them.
Well, there's two sides of that. So one is at the moment with the very low fertility rates, you have to think about, people coming in for immediate help to work in the care sector, social care sector, and other sectors. But the other reason we should ask ourselves is, why are people not having children? We've researched that in detail. people are having children at an increasingly later age, so age 30 and above, and they're starting to have some medical problems. But what do they need to be in place? And there's been some really interesting recent studies that it's things such as well-being, it's things such as housing. So you have to think about mortgages, you have to think about the ability to get a house and to start your career, but also certainty in the labor market, to know when's my next paycheck coming, and when are my hours, is it very precarious? Can I make long-term financial planning? So, and mental health has been seen as a real serious issue for youth as well, too. So all of these factors play together. And, so also countering, low fertility. And a lot of people say they actually intend and they want to have children and they're not having them. So that's a real issue as well.
It's a right old mess. It's probably the summary here, Melinda, but it's really interesting. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
That's Melinda Mills there. She's the director of the